Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to check out, it's some new music today. It's a new performance that I've been told I need to check out. All I've seen so far is the thumbnail, and I'm already intrigued. Also, the band is, I'm going to assume, French, because I cannot pronounce this at all. I believe it's Angine de Poitrine. Probably butchered that. I'm so bad at French pronunciations. Links, though, the name of the band and the song are in the title. The link for this video from KEXP will be in the description. If y'all want to find more about this, there's how you search for it, because you're not going to understand it from my pronunciation, that's for sure. Let's dive into this, see what they have in store for us today. They either have a metronome on an in-ear monitor, or they just have phenomenal internal metronomes. I mean, these staccato notes are short, and yet they were just completely in sync. So a 20-beat phrase, 5 bars of 4 probably, but there's some polyrhythmic devices in here really shaking things up. The guitar is just constantly driving. Oh, and they're doing live looping too. On the guitar and bass at least. They have microphones in their costumes, but lots of distortion on them. At least I think that's the human voice. Interesting harmonic choices. Microtonal, maybe? I want to look at this guitar. Yeah, no, all the frets are the same. Whoa. Actually, they're not. Yeah, those frets are very thin. And I think they're varying width too. Like a buzzer on a game show. incredibly steady and reliable drum work here. Interestingly enough, the easiest thing to talk about right here is the drum work. And that's not to diminish the drummer, but we really only have two instruments. There's some vocals in there, and we'll have to talk about them in a second. They're kind of interesting. But the guitar is rhythmically odd, harmonically odd, and melodically driven. There's a lot going on there. And with all of that movement, somebody needs to be the foundation. Someone needs to be, just the strong, simple base to build everything off of. And that's where the drums come in. A lot of the drum parts are fairly straightforward. Bass kick, usually on every beat or every other beat. Snare, usually on every other beat. And some cymbal work that's just constant eighth notes. There are some more intricate lines. I mentioned there at the end that I liked the more complex snare pattern that we saw with a bit of syncopation in that final drum pattern. But for the most part, in order to keep things digestible for the audience and playable for them, that's not to say that they couldn't ramp up the complexity. We have certainly seen two-piece bands just constant rhythmic complexity. I can't remember the name of it. It was a drummer and a keyboardist, I think. And the keyboardist had like 3 different synthesizers or keyboards. And that song was just absolutely bonkers. If anyone can remind me of what that band was, I'll put a card up there, but I don't even have an inkling of a thought of how to search for that. This was probably 3-4 years ago. Super complex mathy stuff with just 2 people. But you also got stuff like Clowncore and pretty much anything that Zach Hill is a part of. He's been a part of a couple of, actually I think Clowncore is Zach Hill, and that's a 2-piece outfit. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely been super complex two-man bands before. But for the purpose of this track, I think it's just given the complexity of the guitar, you're going to want a strong foundation, and that's where the drummer comes in. We get to hear some cool drum fills in here. The drummer helps pull ideas through so that we move from one section to the next. A lot of that is with the drum fills. The drummer is also introducing new rhythmic devices just a hair bit early through these fills so that we can get a gist for them before we go into a new feel, a new time feel, or a new rhythmic device. And it helps the song feel smooth despite all the stuff that's going on in it. But the drummer's doing so much. He's just carrying all the weight in ensuring that this song works and that it sticks together, and they're holding it up this entire time. And it's a lot of weight. Even though technically I think it's the less spectacle part of this track, it is incredibly important to the song. Now, the other side of the equation is the guitarist. They are playing the guitar, they are playing the bass, they are live looping. And what that means is they have the ability to record something that they play and then set it up to loop. So they're having to set up the record button, the stop and play button, and they have to make sure that they're timing it perfectly so that it stops in, the 8-bar beat, or actually I think 10-bar beat through most of this that they're working within, so that they can play something else on top of it, whether that means moving to the bass after recording a guitar line, or playing a guitar line that plays against the recorded guitar line, or recording a bass line, then a guitar line, and then playing a guitar line with that. They're also saving these to specific banks so that they can turn them back on, or turn them off and turn them back on later so that they can continue to use them as building blocks throughout the song. So just on that one level alone, live looping is something that always impresses me. And it's right here on display. You not only have to play all the parts of the music, but you also have to build out the song and turn on and off each of the parts of the track alongside playing it too. It's performance on another level, and it's just one more thing to have to worry about, and it's always going to be something that impresses me. But you also have a lot of the moving lines on this, just being incredibly driven, faster ideas, rhythmically complex. I suppose we should talk about the rhythm aspect of this. We kicked the track off with a 20-beat phrase, and most of the time that I counted the time out in other sections, they were 10-beat phrases. So I think most of the song is actually in 5/4, where I had originally understood it as 5 bars of 4 beats, which is a little odd. It's an odd number of bars. I think it was actually 4 bars of 5 beats, giving us the standard 4-bar phrase, but the odd 5 beats per bar. And this lines up with other sections which were working on 2-bar phrases of 5, giving us the 10 there. I'm not going to commit 100% and say every single part of this track was in 5, but everything I counted was in 5, which is interesting. You don't hear a lot of 5/4 music out there, not in its entirety. We've definitely listened to some proggy stuff where 5 is a time signature we go into, but 5 just isn't that popular of a time signature to be within. So it's interesting that, as far as I can tell, this entire track is in it, and they're playing it fairly straight too. I had mentioned that the snare was coming on almost every other beat, which in some odd time signatures like 3, that's not really going to work too easily. You can extend that out to 2 bars, but you're still filling such a small amount of time. But here it's every other beat, and it sounds consistent because the guitarist changes up their accent points so frequently that the snare on 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 is a nice steady backbeat to everything, and it provides the home beat for the syncopation of the guitar work to dance around. It works so good, and the drummer does a lot of the work in making this odd time signature feel normal and standard. So I really appreciate that. So we have the weird rhythmic stuff going on here. We have the weird phrasing stuff going on here, but then we also have just really intricate, complex rhythmic things coming out of the guitars. I had mentioned that they're odd harmonically and melodically too. The melody kind of comes from the weird rhythms paired with the weird harmony. And the weird harmony is that this song is microtonal, or at least that's what I think it is. Some of these pitches, they didn't feel quite right. I didn't notice this until the second or third section of the track, but there is a series of notes played and the intervals are off. I was hearing tones that shouldn't be that close together. Imagine looking at a piano and you have a white and a black key next to each other, and that is a half step. If you could somehow play a note between those, that's what the guitarist is doing. And that's why I wanted to get a closer look at the neck of the guitar, to look at the frets, because if you look at, there are specific microtonal guitars and the frets aren't even. Let me get my guitar real quick. All right, I'm gonna try to do this without hurting anything. So as you can see, the fret bars are straight down. They always cross through all of them. When I've seen microtonal guitars though, you'll have a fret per string. So this might, instead of being a straight line, it might have a little piece here, little piece here, little piece there, little piece there. And as you go down the strings, it's at different areas. But the person who is playing here, their fret bars are completely straight up and down. So I think that's interesting because that means each string isn't tuned to its own microtonal intervals, that they're all kind of built off of the lowest string. I don't know how that works. I'm kind of intrigued about that. But you may also notice that the gaps between the fret bars, it gets smaller as you go up the neck. And it was actually the inverse, well, not necessarily the inverse on their guitar, but these really small spaces, we found them up at the top. And then there's stuff in the middle that, I don't know, it spaced out a little bit and then got narrow again and then spaced out quite a bit at the top. So the intervals are all completely custom there. And that's exactly what microtonal music tends to be, is creating your own intervals between notes. And the more I looked at the guitar, the more I realized, yeah, dude, this is a microtonal guitar. This is microtonal music. And basically, you know, if you look at a piano or a keyboard, there's 12 notes before the pattern of the white and black keys resets. There's a group of 5, and then a group of 7, and then a group of 5, and a group of 7. So the 5 and the 7, there's 12. There's your 12 notes per octave. Well, what if you cut an octave up into 13 notes, 20 notes, 25 notes, 37 notes, 45 notes? Now you're working with microtonal music. You're creating pitches that are in smaller divisions, or you can go wider too. Not necessarily microtonal, but you can go to, you know, cut your octave up into 5 notes. And that's what's going on here. That's what gives some of it sort of an otherworldly sound, where some of the melodies just feel a little off. Maybe you didn't know why. Yeah, it's microtone right there. It also can increase the dissonance in places, as our ears, most people's ears, aren't used to hearing these intervals. Me included. I don't listen to a lot of microtonal music. A lot of this felt off and even dissonant in places. And so that adds just another oddity to it. You have odd rhythmic devices, you have odd harmony, and the odd harmony, odd note choices, and odd rhythms are coming together to create odd melodies. And this thing just ends up feeling very different. I think what I find most interesting about it is that it honestly comes off as fairly palatable, though. Despite all the odd choices, it was rather digestible. We've listened to a few microtonal tracks in the past, and you know, some of them are palatable. Most of them are difficult to listen to. You know, most genres are what I call an acquired taste. I don't think anyone's born just understanding and enjoying any style of music. Even pop music is an acquired taste. So just like anything else, you have to listen to and absorb and understand what microtonal music is doing. And much like progressive or avant-garde music, every band is going to be doing microtonal different. So unlike just learning, you know, to enjoy metal, or learning to enjoy country, or learning to enjoy pop, learning to enjoy microtonal is, yeah, kind of just being exposed to it's going to help, but you know, you kind of learn to enjoy a microtonal artist, because everyone's going to have their own microtonal intervals. I don't know where I'm going with this, but It's difficult to get into, but I think it, much like learning to enjoy any genre, it's probably quite rewarding. But I do find it interesting that this is palatable and digestible for what it is, metrically complex and harmonically complex and unusual. And then when you pair in the weird vocal distortion and effects going on, you just have something that, oh, and the presentation of it all, their outfits, their costumes. You have something that is very unique, very interesting, and I think it's going to catch a lot of people's ears and eyes. I'm kind of curious how big of a group they already are, but I'd wager that, I mean, this was February, so we're a month past this now. But I'd wager that this performance on KEXP probably helped elevate their popularity a bit. I can see them being something on the more digestible side of weird music, and they could actually get a pretty big fan base, which would be pretty cool. I'm going to look up the lyrics real quick, and then we're going to wrap this one up. All right, there's just one phrase mentioned here, Mata Zyklekma. Well, actually, there's a phonetic switch around too, where the second time it says Tazi Klekmata, which takes the same, what, 5 syllables and just changes them around a little bit. As far as I can tell, though, I ran this through a translator that didn't pick up any language. I tried specific languages, particularly French. I tried because it is a French band. And yeah, nothing came back. So I'm going to assume that this is a made-up language. Cue all the jokes that all languages are made up. And that they're not really saying anything, much like bands like Magma. Now, that's not to say that maybe this language doesn't mean something to them, and maybe they have ascribed meaning to these, but there's no way for me to know unless they publish their language, a dictionary of English to whatever they're making up here. I do want to point out something real cool, though. The album that this comes off of, the album art for it, is a play on the old Excite Bike cover art from the NES. And I love that. I don't know how popular that game was, but I had it as a kid, and as soon as I saw this album art on Genius, I was like, I know that, I recognize that. What pattern am I recognizing here? Yeah, dude, it's Excite Bike. So that's very cool. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up for today. These are my thoughts on this. I forgot the pronunciation of it. Y'all know it's down there. Y'all can copy and paste it. You don't need to listen to me butcher their name again. What did you think of this? Is there anything that you enjoyed about this? Anything that you didn't enjoy? Do you have your own take, perspective, or opinion on this? Let me know. Add all of that and anything else you'd like to add into the comment section below. Above that, in the description box, you can find a link to Linktree, which takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all 3 of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.